Hello everybody, it's fall time. I'm saying it's fall time now because it's officially dropped below 90 degrees in South Carolina. So we're counting it as fall. But hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new and have never been here before, my name's Kendall and I make a bunch of bookish related videos. Today we are going to be filming one of my favorite videos to film, and that's just telling you what I'm going to be reading in the month of September. This is kind of a tame TBR, if I'm being quite honest, because I know that summer is coming to an end for me. I start school really soon, next week actually, so just kind of set realistic goals for myself. But it still is kind of a big TBR. I have to give myself options just in case I don't want to read one of the books on my TBR. But we're going to go ahead and get into it. I am going to start off with books that I'm reading for different book clubs and all of that, and then we'll go into a well, it's not really a surprise anymore, but a readathon that I'm going to be hosting, and then what the other books that I've added to my TBR are. So the first one that I'm going to be reading for a book club happens to be my book club, which I'm so excited for. We, and by we, I mean me and my patrons. If you don't know, I have started a Patreon, and it is called the Dreamy Dragon Den, and we have so much fun over there. There are weekly sprints where you can literally just do anything, hang out, talk, be productive, read, write, whatever your heart desires. I also, for different tiers, offer different things. So we have movie nights every month for one of my tiers. I also have like a pajama party every month for my my highest tier, where we basically are going to be on a Zoom call and playing games. You know, basically it's going to be one big sleepover, but over Zoom. So I'm very excited about that. But anyway, getting back to the task at hand, one of the perks of being a patron is that you get to vote for our book club pick. I do pick out a few different options, and most of the time they're based off of what I want to read, and then it's just one giant buddy read. But thanks to my patrons, which I'm so super excited for, we're going to be reading The September House by Carissa Orlando. This is this author's debut book. She has written things before in magazines and she has been published, but this is her first novel, and I am so excited for this. I have mentioned this one several times. It's one of my most anticipated releases of the year. It also just feels right that we're reading a book that has September, the title, in the month of September, which is also the month of my birthday. Perfect. So I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I see blurbs on a book, it helps me to decide if I'm going to read it or not. And the first one that I saw on this book is from Grady Hendrix, and I was like, sold, we'll be reading, don't have to tell me twice. But he also wrote another one on the back, and he says this is an eerie, darkly funny, and emotionally grounded book about the ghosts that haunt houses and marriages. Rachel Harrison said this is a rich and wholly satisfying haunted house novel about dark family secrets and patterns of destruction. It will charm you and terrify you and break your heart, often within the same sentence. An exhilarating debut. And Jesse Q. Sutanto said, a genre-blending masterpiece that is part horror, part complex psychological suspense, and part dark humor. All of it tied together with beautiful prose. It creeped me out in the best way possible. So, sounds perfect to me, but I'll give you the gist of what this is about. There is this couple who finds this house and moves into it, and they find out that every September it starts bleeding. Like the house starts dripping blood. There are noises and things that keep them up at night, and it gets worse like the further in September it goes, but then it stops. And I just know that it ends up with the husband just cannot take it anymore and moves out, and he's done. But the wife is determined to make this house continue to stay her home, and so her daughter comes to help her with it. And I think there's going to be a lot of like deeper meanings in this book, which I'm super excited about. I love that when deeper meanings are put into horror novels, but I also think it's going to be kind of spooky. So I'm really excited to get into this, and I have the link to my Patreon down below if you do want to join us in this book read and discussion. And the next one is for Liv's Patreon. I'm terrible at actually keeping up with Patreon reads, but I am actually going to be starting this one immediately and soon so that I can fit it in before her live discussion on it. And it is At the Coffeeshop of Curiosities by Heather Weber. This one is supposed to be like I think more magical realism than it is fantasy. The author of the Kindred Spirits Club said Weber is the queen of magical small town charm. At the Coffeeshop of Curiosities will bewitch readers with his cast of quirky townspeople, enchanting romance, and irresistible animals, while the mysterious events will keep them flipping the pages. I am a little nervous about this because I have heard that it kind of gets sad, but I love magical realism. Every time I think of magical realism, I think of Addie LaRue and how that book broke and destroyed my soul, but I loved it. So I'm hoping that that's the case with this book. I did check it out from the library because I'm trying to do that more. I'm trying to be a better library user, but I am excited to get to this one. I'm kind of going into it blind. I don't really know what is going on. I just know that there is this younger girl who something happens, like her boyfriend dies or something, and she just has to get away, and she runs into this older woman who runs a coffee shop, I think. So I'm just hoping that it's really, really cute, but also has like meaning in it as well. But I will be getting to this one. The other one is also part of Liv's Patreon book club, which is the Tea Time Society, if I didn't mention that already. And it is The Library of Shadows by Rachel Moore. This is a book that I had never heard of until Olivia brought it to my attention. It looks super cute though. I love the cover. And from what I've heard, a lot of people, well, it doesn't really have a lot of ratings, but the ratings that it does have are really good, and it just looks so fun. I haven't been able to find it in any of my local bookstores or like Barnes & Noble, so I probably will end up ordering that one as soon as I'm gonna read it and kind of going from there. But this is Olivia's actual September book club pick. The Coffeeshop of Curiosities is her August pick, so I'll be reading both this time around. But from what I know about this book, there is a library at this academy school, and students have gone missing in there before, and it's just, you know, you don't go in there after dark kind of library. And this girl ends up, you know, I think she probably ends up going into it after dark, which, you know, that's how people get killed. She is trying to find her father who died, and kind of, I think, solve a mystery in a way. But on her search for her father, she finds this student ghost person who has died, and I think they set off to find this mystery together. From what I've heard, it's supposed to be like a rom-com type of feel, so I'm excited to see where they go with it, because I don't know how a girl falling in love with a ghost is gonna work, but I'm up to see what happens. The next one that I will be reading or trying to get my hands on, I don't know if I like this author. I've never read this author before, so I'm not exactly sure if I want to purchase the book, especially since it's just in hardcover. But I will be reading this for Sydney's book club over at Sid Bookworm. She has the Nightcrawlers book club, and she is reading Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. And from what I understand, this is Elizabeth Acevedo's first adult novel. She usually writes young adult fiction novels, and I think they're pretty hard-hitting. They usually deal with like Hispanic or Latina girls who are, I think they're mostly like coming-of-age novels, if I'm not mistaken. She has written a good many that have caught my eye, and I need to get my hands on them, but now I'm actually making use of my library, so I'm trying to get my hands on Family Lore through my library, and I hope that it becomes available soon, because I know a lot of people are trying to get their hands on it right now. So in this book, we're following a Dominican American family, and I think we're following a group of sisters from what I've gathered, and one of them, named Flor, is able to predict when someone is going to die, and she decides one day that she wants to have a wake for herself for when she dies, and she wants like her family to celebrate her life, but she wants to be there. And she won't tell her sisters why she's doing this, like if she's actually, you know, seen her death, if she knows when she's gonna die, anything. She just doesn't want to say anything about it. But I think it starts coming to light that the sisters aren't exactly like truthful either. Like they have their own secrets that they're trying to hold, and you know how family can be. You're all keeping secrets from each other, but you also, those are the people that you are supposed to be able to share those secrets with and be able to confide in when you need them. But we also are going to get a look into the cousins of the family, so I think the sisters' kids, what they're going through, and possibly like the sisters' aunts and stuff like that. I think we're going to get a lot of look into a bunch of different family members, and I think it's going to be really cool because, you know, I love when stories have different characters and different plot points for those different characters, and then they all make up one big story and kind of come together at the end. So I'm just excited to see if her books are for me. And I will leave all of the information linked down below for these book clubs and stuff, of when, you know, you have to be part of their Patreon. Obviously, you're part of the Patreons to get the link for the discussion, but this one is an actual book club that is not a Patreon exclusive book club, but it is a book club that was just started by some fabulous women who I love, and I will leave all of their information linked down below. And I believe they are doing the discussion on this one on the 30th of September. But again, I will leave all the information in the description. But I'm so excited that they picked this book because it was going to be on my TBR for September anyway, and now I get to read it with a whole bunch of friends, and I'm just excited about it. But the name of the book club that they just started is Tales of Starlight Book Club, and it's just a bi-monthly fantasy book club that I am super excited to get into. So the first pick that they chose for us to read is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I feel like I don't even have to mention this book because everybody and their mom has already read this book. I'm super excited about it, and I just noticed on the back that Rachel Griffin and Shelby Mahurin and Adeline Grace have all blurbed this. But it's a very complicated type of story. There are these two rival journalists who find love through a magical connection, but there is a war going on between gods. So I think this is going to have like history, fantasy, romance, mythology, and it just sounds really good. It says, after centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again, but 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction, and her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish into the hands of Roman Kit, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle for her brother, the fate of mankind, and love. It says Divine Rivals is an epic enemies to lovers fantasy novel filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. From what I've heard, the ending of this one is a wild ride and just kind of puts people in their feels. So I'm excited for this. I really am excited to read this and discuss it with April and Sam over at their book club. Again, all information down below, but it just sounds enchanting. I've had so many friends read this and they're like, if you do not get to this, I need you to get to this like now. So it's no longer being put off. I promise I'm getting to it. I'm gonna see what all the hype is about. And thankfully we're close-ish enough to December when the second one comes out that I think I can do it. I can read it and not have to have the second one immediately. Okay, so after all of the book clubs that we have going on this month, now we're gonna get into my favorite readathon ever, the Upside Down Readathon. We started this readathon last year when season 4 of Stranger Things was coming out, and it was just a blast. There, you know, is no new season coming out yet. We're still waiting on season 5. Hopefully it comes out next year, and hopefully then me and the girls will be able to put on like a raging, very cool, very fun, and interactive readathon. But we're kind of going for more of a low-key, vibe. We just want people to be able to do what they want to do, read what they want to read. It's been a very busy year, I feel like, for everybody. But if you don't know already, the readathon is hosted by me, Olivia from Liv's Library, Naomi from Naomi's Library, and Jordan from Sorry Book Solid. And this readathon will be happening very soon, in basically a week. And it's taking place on September 18th through the 24th. We will be having reading sprints. We will be discussing buddy reads and different things like that. So if you're not aware of what it was, I do have an announcement video that you can go watch from the year before. And basically, we each pick a character. The girls and I, we each pick a character that we want to represent for that readathon week. And we pick a buddy read based off of that character. You can, you know, base it off of a different vibe. I know that Naomi based her buddy read this year off of what her character would read. I based mine off of kind of the storyline that my character goes through, but we just base it off of different things. And so I'm really excited for our buddy read picks this year, our character picks. I'm just excited to have a good time and reminisce on Stranger Things while we wait for the next season to come out. So just so you know, Naomi will be representing Eddie Munson, and her buddy read is going to be Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. Jordan is going to be representing Robin, and her book is called Forward March. And Liv will be representing Hopper, and her book is going to be Whispering Pines. You can go watch their announcement videos and TBRs of what they're going to be reading, and they can give you more into what their book is going to be and stuff like that. But I'm going to go ahead and get into what my buddy read is. So I'm going to be representing Lucas. He is one of the 4 fabulous boys. It was hard to pick, I'm not gonna lie, because we used up a lot of the like main and like our favorite characters last year, so this is probably gonna get harder as we go on to pick out characters and stuff like that. But you know, we'll see what we come up with. But I am focusing on Lucas and his story with Max. I'm not going to go into spoilers for the show, because if you haven't seen it, you need to go watch it. But he has certain storylines with Max, which is a girl from Stranger Things. I think she shows up in season 3 for the first time, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's season 3 or end of season 2. I can't remember. But she shows up, and you know, her and Lucas kind of kindle a teenage love, but it also kind of gets in the way of his friendship. So I am choosing my buddy read to be The Impossible Fortress by Jason Rekulik, I think is how you say his name. Which, if you recognize this name, it's very strange, because he is the author of Hidden Pictures, which is one of the most terrifying books I've ever read. I mean, I haven't really gotten that far into the horror genre, but it was pretty creepy. It had a kid drawing creepy things, and yeah, it was scary. But anyway, this was the first novel that he ever wrote. I did not know, but apparently this was a book of the month pick for April in 2017. So I don't know. From what I've heard, this is more middle grade, young adult, but I guess it can be adult. I'm not really sure, but it looks super cool. It looks like it has video game writing on the beginning of the chapters, but it sounds really, really cool, and it does give me, you know, Stranger Things vibes with the relationships between Lucas and his friends, and also Lucas and Max. But it says, a love letter to the 1980s, to the dawn of the computer age and adolescence, a time when anything feels possible. The Impossible Fortress will make you laugh, make you cry, and make you remember in exquisite detail what it feels like to love something or someone for the very first time. Until May 1987, 14-year-old Billy Marvin of Wetbridge, New Jersey is a nerd, but a decidedly happy nerd. Afternoons are spent with his buddies watching copious amounts of television, gorging on Pop-Tarts, debating who would win in a brawl, Rocky Balboa or Freddy Krueger, Bruce Springsteen or Billy Joel, Magnum P.I. or T.J. Hooker, and programming video games on his Commodore 64 late into the night. Then Playboy magazine publishes photos of Wheel of Fortune's hostess, changes. Vanna White. Billy meets expert programmer Mary Zelinsky and everything changes. So it sounds like these boys are going to get into quite a bit of trouble. There's no telling what they're going to get into. But from what I've heard, it's very much, you know, Billy is going back and forth with his friends, but he's also trying to get to know Mary more. And I feel like this is going to be a good one for the readathon. But let's go ahead and get into the prompts of the readathon. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because I've mentioned these books multiple times on my channel now. So yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this, but when we come up with the prompts, for each prompt we are basing it off of the different seasons of Stranger Things. So our first prompt is based off of season 1, and it is read a book with food on the cover. As you know, in season 1 of Stranger Things, you see a lot of Eggo waffles being tossed around and eaten. So it just felt like the right decision. So I'm going with the second book in the Evenfall Witches B&B mystery series, When the Crow's Away by Orly Wallace. I promise it has food. There are some chocolates down here that have been opened by this cat or knocked over by this frog or something. But anyway, this is the sequel to In a Company of Witches, which I loved last year, so I'm super excited to get to it. Plus, it's a very short read, and I think I also have the audio for it, so this should be no problem to get to during a readathon week. Our second prompt is to read a book that takes place during fall or Halloween. You do see the boys dress up during Halloween season and different things like that, and it's just so much fun to see what they dress up as, and they do, you know, trick-or-treating and stuff like that. So I have chosen to say that this book takes place in fall. I'm assuming it does. It doesn't necessarily say fall or Halloween, but I'm just gonna say that that's probably what it is. But anyway, I will be reading Small Town Big Magic by Hazel Beck. This is a witchy romance book from what I've heard, and the second one just came out, and I don't think this one will be hard to get through either because the words are kind of big on the pages, but I think it'll be good. And hopefully if I get an audio with it, again, this will be like an easy book to get through for a readathon. And I've also been really in the mood for some fall romance books, so I'm hoping that this just scratches that itch, you know? The third prompt is to read a book with nostalgic vibes. In the third season of Stranger Things, you get to see this Starcourt Mall, and it just gives you like all the nostalgia of going to the mall with your friends when you were younger. That was like the cool place to hang out, the cool place to go on weekends, and yeah, so we base it off of that. And I'm going to be picking up a graphic novel that I have not purchased yet, but it is called Another Kind by Travis Bream, and this book gives me nostalgic vibes because first off, the first time that I saw the cover, it immediately made me think of Teen Titans, which I loved when I was growing up. I really got into it. I really loved it. I thought it was cool. You know, it's these quirky cast of characters who are pulled together for different reasons for one mission, and it's just so nice to see it. But the more that I read about it, the more it sounded like it was Stranger Things. And let me just read it to you so you can see what I mean. It says 6 kids search for a new place to call home in this middle grade graphic novel. Tucked away in a government facility nicknamed the Playroom, 6 not quite human kids learn to control their strange and unpredictable abilities. Life is good, or safe at least, hidden from the prying eyes of a judgmental world. That is, until a security breach forces them out of their home and into the path of the Collector, a mysterious being with leech-like powers. Can the group band together to thwart the Collector's devious plan, or will they wind up the newest addition to his collection? And this has 1,000 views so far, and it's a 4.4 rating on Goodreads. I think the artwork looks like it's going to be phenomenal, and I feel like it just helps you with your goal to get books read during a readathon when you add a graphic novel into the mix. So I'm super excited about that, and it just, I feel like it's going to put me in the Stranger Things mood. And then, of course, for our fourth prompt, based off of season 4, we're going with our Ma'am Vecna. And we're going to be reading a book with a haunted house in it. And I'm finally going to get to Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. So from what I've heard, this book kind of draws from those Gothic horror or Gothic dark novels, like Rebecca and Jane Eyre, where you have this really spunky, fun female protagonist, but you have this ancient or like disturbing house with secrets of its own. So we are getting an abandoned mansion, an isolated mansion in the 1950s in Mexico. And our main character, she gets a call or gets a letter from her cousin who is newly married, and her cousin just needs help. And so our main character rushes over to her and she's trying to help out, but she's more of a like snooty, I don't want to say snooty, but she just prefers the finer things in life. And she's not really into trying to help, like, you know, solve mysteries and things like that, but she knows that she has to help her cousin. And so I'm excited because it mentions the house begins to invade Noemi's dreams with visions of blood and doom. But I've heard that this book is really weird, really quirky, but I heard that I might like it. A lot of my friends have read it and they did not like enjoy it, or they liked it but they just didn't get the hype behind it, but maybe I will. Okay, y'all are probably like, finally we're gonna get into the books that I'm reading just because I want to be reading them. This one has been on my TBR, I think, since July. Maybe I'll finally get to it. And that is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 4th book in the series. Yeah, the 4th book, but the 5th book in the series that I'll have read because I read Assassin's Blade right after Heir of Fire, but I need to read this. I need to read this so bad, but it's so big, you guys. It's so big. But I don't know why I'm like iffy about it, because I literally read her 800-page book, House of Sky and Breath, earlier this year. So what am I afraid of? 645 pages? I can do that in my sleep. Just kidding. I have read like 3 of her books that are bigger than this though, so I need to just get over it. I have the audio too, which will help. But I just love getting immersed in her worlds. I just know that it takes a certain feeling for me to get ready to get in this world again. But it's time, because next month, October and November, I really want to focus on tandem reading Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms, and then finishing off the year in December with Kingdom of Ash, which will be the biggest mountain that I'm gonna climb. And that way, when Crescent City 3 comes out in January, I will be ready and caught up with her books. But I also think I just don't want this world to end, because I'm really getting attached to characters, and we know how Sarah is with her books. So another book that I really want to get to this month is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I have read All the Stars and Teeth by her, and I really enjoyed it. I really loved the writing. She just has a way of writing settings and characters that I really love, and this one just sounds really good. I know that people like Stephanie Garber, Adrienne Young, Rachel Griffin, Carrie Maniscalco, they all blurbed this book saying it's a wicked fairy tale, it's a Gothic romance, a darkly romantic tale that will sweep readers away. It's just Gothic romance, Gothic mystery, add it all up together, and I'm here for it. Plus, this cover is just stunning. And then it doesn't even stop there, because look how pretty. I'm a sucker for a cute naked hardcover book. This says, orphaned as a baby, 19-year-old Signa has been raised by a string of guardians, each more interested in her wealth than her well-being, and each has met an untimely end. Her remaining relatives are the elusive Hawthorns, an eccentric family living in Thorngrove, an estate both glittering and gloomy. Its patriarch mourns his late wife through wild parties, while his son grapples for control of the family's waning reputation, and his daughter suffers from a mysterious illness. And when their mother's restless spirit appears claiming she was poisoned, Signa realizes that the family she depends on could be in grave danger, and enlists the help of a surly stable boy to hunt down the killer. However, Signa's best chance of uncovering the murder is an alliance with Death himself, a fascinating, dangerous shadow who has never been far from her side. Though he's made her life a living hell, death shows Signa that her growing reputation may be more powerful and more irresistible than she ever dared imagine. This book kind of reminds me if Secret Garden met Crimson Peak. But you also throw in death. Like, death is a being in there. But it just... Can you tell I'm in the mood for some gothic dark vibes? Because I am. The next book is one that I just picked up, and it is supposed to be this funny rom-com novel, and it is My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine, or Levine, I'm not sure how you say her name, but this is her debut novel. I have talked about this one already before as a book that I really want to get to, so I'm very excited that I have this one now. I've seen a lot of people really enjoy it. They just say it's a really feel-good type of novel, and I've heard that the comedy part of the rom-com itself is just super hilarious. Because, you know, you have this girl who is basically trying to find a roommate, and the only roommate that she can find for a good price that she can afford is to live with this vampire whose name is Frederick J. Fitzwilliam. And obviously he's not normal because he's a vampire, but I just feel like I'm gonna really enjoy this. I love when a rom-com novel has a good comedy, but it's gonna be the best. The next book is one that I've literally talked about in my last video, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and add it to my September TBR, and that is The Lighthouse Witches by C.J. Cook. This one kind of gives me spooky vibes, but it also, you know, is taking place on like a coast or an island, and it's happening in Scotland, so it kind of gives me the best of both worlds with summer and with fall. So I'm hoping that this is going to be another good transitional book for me to read. So I am planning to get to this one sooner than the other books. But I did talk about how this one is about this woman who is an artist, and she gets paid to paint like a sigil or something. I don't know if it's a sigil, but she gets paid to paint something on the lighthouse floor, which I think is what like this little thing down here is supposed to represent. But she brings her 3 daughters with her, but what happens is 2 of the daughters go missing, and then the mom starts freaking out and obviously goes looking for her kids, and she goes missing as well. So then we're left with 1 child, and this 1 child grows up, and she goes back to the lighthouse to see if she can get any answers, and she ends up finding one of her sisters, but her sister has never aged. So it sounds so good. I know Olivia said that I will love this one if I just pick it up. So that's what we're doing. I just was waiting for the audiobook to come in, but now is the time. Another one that I've mentioned so many times. We're just gonna say what this is and move on, because there's no need to waste time with this. And that is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I think this is supposed to be like Gilmore Girls-ish with a little bit of spice maybe, but it kind of sounds like really cute. It's a warm and uplifting novel about an isolated witch whose opportunity to embrace a quirky new family and a new love changes the course of her life. Supposed to warm my heart with its endearing characters, grumpy sunshine love story, and gorgeously sparkling magic. And I think that it will. I just have to actually read it this time. So excited to get to this one. Apparently we're just going for all the witchy books that I named in my last video, and we just add them to this TBR, because I'm also going to try and read Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I have yet to read a Rachel Harrison book, and I own 3. I bought 2 while I was in Washington visiting my friends, and so it's about time I got to one, and I think this one will be good for right now because I am in this like cozy mood but also horror mood, and this has been described as like the perfect cozy horror book. It's a darkly funny, frightening novel about a young woman meeting a witch who might be too good to be true. And I think it's like very quirky and weird. People have mentioned spiders. I don't really know. I kind of want to go into this one as blind as possible, because I feel like with her books, that's the best way to do it, because you probably will have no idea what's going on. This is a book that I I didn't really DNF it. I just read a few pages and then I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be into this. And I ended up unhauling it a while ago when it came out. But then when Olivia found out I had not read it, she freaked out. She was like, how have you not read this yet? And she has a point. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get it. I got it when we were in Washington and I'm now going to add it to my TBR so that I can see what she was talking about and hopefully get more into this author's writing. And that is The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. Nobody has really talked about this one. I remember when this one came out, when I was working at Barnes & Noble. It says, no warrior could stop the risen dead, but perhaps a gravedigger could. 17-year-old Wren cares about only two things, her family and her family's graveyard. And right now, both are in dire straits. Since the death of her parents, Wren and her siblings have been scraping together a meager existence as gravediggers in the remote village of Colburn, which sits at the foot of a harsh and deadly mountain range that was once home to the Fae. The problem with being a gravedigger in Colburn, though, is that the dead don't always stay dead. The risen corpses are known as bone houses, and legends say that they are the result of a decades-old curse. When Ellis, an apprentice mapmaker with a mysterious past, arrives in town, the bone houses attack with a new ferocity. What is it that draws them near, and more importantly, how can they be stopped for good? Together, Ellis and Wren embark on a journey that will take them into the heart of the mountains, where they will have to face both the curse and the deeply buried truths about themselves. Equal parts classic horror novel and original fairy tale, The Bone Houses will have you spellbound from the very first page. I didn't even know this had fae in it. A horror-drenched fairy tale. I have a good feeling about this one. And the last book that I'm going to be getting to is my Christian inspiration book of the month. Like I said, I've been trying to read a inspirational Christian book or a nonfiction Christian book each month, and this one caught my attention and caught my eye, and I feel like a lot of people will be able to relate to this one, and I do think this is independently published, which I love as well. So I'm going to be reading It's Not Your Turn by Heather Thompson Day, and this one just has a really, really good message. It says, what do you do when it seems like everybody else is getting their dreams and you're not? You don't have to be distressed when Instagram comparison makes you feel like others are more successful than you. Heather Thompson Day points us to what we can do to shape ourselves while waiting, so we are ready when it's our turn. She unpacks instant gratification and peer comparison in a social media world and shows how we can cultivate perspectives and practices that will enable us to be more content, patient, and constructive. We can learn to walk slowly and trust God to do His work in us, being more present in our relationships rather than striving for premature, image-based success. Your turn will come. Here's what you can do to get there. I feel like it's so easy, especially now when we are surrounded by social media, to see things happening with other people. And you have to remind yourself, you know, there is no time limit on, it's not, oh, you're not married by 22, so you're never going to get married. Or you didn't have a baby by 25, you're never going to have a baby. Things like that, that's not true, but I think that kind of stuff gets ingrained in our brain, especially in a social media driven world. So I'm really excited to get to this one. There's also, the audiobook is on Scribd, and I'm very interested to see and like hear if this writer has a way of speaking to me through her book. But those are all the books that are on my September TBR. I know it's a lot. I know, I need to rein it in a little. I'm just really excited that spooky season has kicked off and I can read all the fall books, all the horror books, and just be immersed in them. But thank you guys so much for watching and continuing to stick with me. I'm so excited to continue making some more fall content, and I hope to see you guys in my next video.